Hello, good afternoon. I am Fikiri, the Dark Feminina. Welcome back. Shalom, blessings, haze of blessings to the One Creator, haze of thank yous to the One Creator, haze of praises to the One Creator. I would just like to bless you for stopping this way. The issue of the Sed, the shadow, the Segudo, that is the Sed King or Duke, the Shadow King or Duke, and the Segudo King or Duke. Kings come in threes. Kingship comes in threes. So there is always the Sed King, who is the main king. His cousin, a paternal cousin, will be the Shadow King, and the Segudo King will be another paternal king of both of them. And the same with dukes. So every original dukedom, of which there are, every original kingdom, of which there are 95 in the world, have the original capital city, not always where the capital cities have been moved to over the generations, but there's always the original capital city located in the southeast of each original kingdom and distinct from the south dukedoms that surround it. So the everything is pyramid, remember, and in order with the creator as the original capital city in Kialotutisi, Mizraim and Boku, is Aswan. It's been moved to Mampu, Memphis. It's been moved to Thebe or Thebes, if you prefer. It's been moved to Luxor, and it's been moved to Cairo, and it has been moved to Alexandria, the royal capital. But its origin, the original royal capital of Kialotutisi, the Nile Valley, is Aswan. In Kialo-E, it is that is Italy. All Italy, it is Potenza. In the Kingdom of England, it is London. And where my square, bless him, his paternal people, his people, the Kingdom of Kialo Judah, the original capital is Jerusalem. Other cities around the world, each original kingdom, as I say, has their own original capital city. The North Dukedoms always begin with the elves, totem name of the first Northeast Dukedom in Kialotutisi. It is Tanis or Ta'an. In Kialo-Ju, it is Dan. Dan. In England, it is Northumberland. That's me. Now, each South Dukedom of each original kingdom begins with a city, a word dukedom not that far from the original capital city. In Kialotutisi, it is Kena or Quena, the QE. In the Kingdom of Judah, it is Beersheba. In England, it is Oxfordshire. Yes. So, the Sed King is the most senior king. There are proofs to look for how you know somebody is the Sed King. So one of those is to know who his own father is. Sometimes the said prince is not born at home. They're born into another family, or they seem to have been born into another family, having been whisked away at birth in a doctor's bag or wrapped up and placed with relatives, so that the said prince's life is saved. and sometimes it's an insurance of a just in case anything untoward happens. The Sed King is the eldest son of his body, of his blood, of the reigning Sed King and his Segudo wife. The Royaume, all of us whose national insurance numbers end with either an A for Alpha, or a B for Beta, or a C for Zeta, or a D for Delta, or an E for Eta, are the Royaume. And the most senior of the Royaume, following the alphabet, are the Alpha. And amongst the Alpha, that's where you find the senior rulers by blood, by descent. So the Sed King is always the eldest son, and we always have a square and lots of performer husbands, wives. So the square, Quedos, is one's main husband or wife if one is royal. So the said prince will be the eldest son of the said king, whether he's in power or not, whether he's acknowledged as the said king or not, whether he was thrown out of power or denied power, ended up in the arena fighting for his life, or on the run with a rebel army because the only way to survive or to win back his kingdom. It depending on the rebel army and what they're about. Some kings have had to hide amongst some very dodgy armies in order to get to someone who actually had the right idea in order to win the day, win his kingdom, sometimes just to save his life, and didn't win the kingdom. But the said prince is always the eldest son of the said king and his Segudo, that is main performer wife, wherever she lives in the world, whether he's managed to formally marry her, often it's done by proxy, or not, because the Royaume were always born married, and out of our Segudo husband wife is always our main performer. And as I said in an earlier videos, earlier posts, the square bears the heir. Even though these days the teaching has got very slight, very little in the world, not enough people are clear about it, the Segudo wife is always who bears the heir, even if she's said to be barren, because the Creator makes everybody have children. Quedos? Now, the said king is always the most senior king. Pharaoh Tumoshu III, Kiala Tutisi, and Boku is the said king, said pharaoh. Alexander the Great, although said to be Greek, is actually the previous pharaoh's son of his body. Adoption happens. It's not a 19th or 20th century invention. It's always been practiced, and when there's need, as I say, kings can make sure their sons are whisked away, spirited away to another kingdom nation, so that they have a chance of survival. And sometimes just to make sure that they meet all the right people, get the right education, so that they can be their best and prayerfully rule one day, naturally. The same goes for the Shadow King, who is the next of the three, and the same, the eldest son of the reigning Shadow King, or the previous Shadow King, and his Segudo wife. And the same for the Segudo King, is always the third of the kings in that order: the Sed King, the Shadow King, the Segudo King. And the Segudo King is the third of the kings, always a paternal cousin of the Shadow King and the Sed King. So the same family, but they're cousins. The Sed King, then his cousin, the Shadow King, then both of their cousins, the Segudo King. Now, finding out who, remember I once taught, and I've written about it, about looking for the national insurance numbers first. Learning the national insurance numbers will tell you whether someone could possibly be the Sed King, the Shadow King, or the Segudo King or Duke, in the king of the whole kingdom in the national pyramid. Then there are the King Dukes of the north, and then the King Dukes of the south, of that original kingdom. So how do you know? You need to learn or remember or know the national insurance number beginnings. Now, to be the senior Sed King of a whole kingdom, or a regional king, usually known as a duke in the various languages of this world, the ninth letter of the national insurance number must end with A for Alpha. The Sed King, as I say, comes first. He's the scion. He's the helm, the most senior. Now, they're not their sons. Neither the Sed King these days, especially, is not recognized. They're known as a duke, if they're lucky, or they're just known for who they are by those who know who they are. But it's a very unsafe situation, because if people do not honor their Sed Kings, their Sed King, their Shadow King, their Segudo King, and their regional kings, the dukes, it causes societal disturbance of the wrong kind. It can bring in illness. It can bring in unnecessary rebellion and violence and crime and of all kinds, whether people stealing, stealing from your bank account because they got hold of your details, and they get all sorts of horrible things happen when people are blaspheming, not interested in the Creator, worse, saying terrible, ascribing wrongdoing to the Creator when we're clearly instructed not to by the Creator. There's a reason for it. The Creator doesn't like it. And it causes people to, it rumbles on. So a person who doesn't have faith in the Creator may think, well, the Creator must be weak then. It's, nobody likes being insulted. And the Creator's given us everything. It's actually incredibly ungrateful. And what it leads to is people deciding, well, who cares who the Sed King is? Who cares who the Sed Duke is, or the Shadow, or the Segudo? And they start doing their own personal ambition, or they follow somebody who is. And that leads to economic troubles and distress. You're wondering why a bank that was so secure could suddenly start to have problems and suddenly fail. When that happens, especially if it's a national bank, a bank that the pharaohs used, or the kings of France, or the kings of America, Kialo, that is the America and Canada are actually one original kingdom. It leads to fighting within couples. It leads to fighting within families. It leads to family members being ostracized for nothing, because of rumor, because of horrible versions as to how we're all supposed to survive and things. It causes shortages, and it causes people to take advantage of the weakness within a kingdom or a group of kingdoms. And it all from a carelessness to the one who made us, and the one who is the feeder. It's biting the hand that feeds. And then there's a horrible replication, this time throughout a kingdom, a nation. And then we have wars, because someone has decided that their personal security rests in ending the whole of Europe, say. And then when they get told off, when the government sends in the tanks, they get told off, and they're complaining that things are difficult for them, but they haven't repented, they haven't learnt the lesson of the heart change and the change of practice. No, that's not the answer to anybody's personal problems, and it is not religion, it is not the law of the long, it is not anybody's custom or tradition ever. It is just rebellion against holiness. It's rebellion against the Holy One. And the reason I wanted to talk about the Sed King, the Shadow King, the Segudo King, is because we're in a pretty pass in the world where so many people have no clue that it matters, that there are three kings who are cousins to one another. Kingship is in the male line. Queens take over when the heir, or who has become king because the father passed away, cannot be brought home without major societal and sometimes international upheaval. Because although in our modern world, since the 19th century, so many people, especially in Europe, have been undertaught that not only are miracles possible, but Heka, magic, is real. It's meant to be used for holy. It's the creator's invention. It is meant to be used for holy. But humans have free will. And sometimes humans use their free will for evil. And so, although it looks as though England didn't have a king after King Edward VI, Tudor, Jagger, J-E, he did have a son. You don't have to grow to adults, to 29 years old before one can have a king, or I can't quite recall for the moment how old the king was when he passed, rather young years, but he did have children. And that's another subject of learning to look for hidden records, and learning to divinare why they're hidden before accusing everybody of just being unhelpful and obstructive. Because although some people are holding on to those records in order to save the day from those indulging in evil use of words, of Heka, magic, of words. Some know how to make real evil rebellions sound as if it's an ancient tradition, an ancient custom that's going to save people from trouble and distress. And it's have to be very careful as to. That's why learning to pray again, learning faith in the Creator, faith in in Nefer, holy, versus the evil. What is Nefer and what is not? What's the law of the long, the Ma'at Izwe, is only about holiness and true justice. But some know how to make what they're doing sound like it. So, and some people think they know what it is. They'll know some, and otherwise they're leading people into confusion. And that can result in people accepting an idea that is actually an abomination to the one creator. And goddess and God are one. One cannot do an unjust in the name of the creator feminina, because she's one with the creator masculina and only holy. The national insurance numbers of the world I have published more than once. The beginning. So if you're looking for the said for any royal family member, and it's paternal first. So as the creator feminina and the creator masculina have determined. So one needs to look for the beginning of one's national insurance number. If it begins with R for Romeo, U for uniform, K for kilo, Z for Zulu, C for Charlie, G for golf, G for golf, who comes after? I'm doing off the top of my head. Probably not the best. G for golf, or I for Italy, or D for David, or J for July, or F for Foxtrot, or S for Sierra, or E for Echo, then we're looking at, if that's you, then you are a royal capital person whose totem name is human. You are the humans. So it must, for a royal family, for inheritance of a kingdom or a dukedom, in all the varying levels of dukedom, it must end, the 9th letter must end with A for Alpha. Then it's a matter of knowing who you are within that family. And, you know, after all these generations of human beings, millennia times millennia, they can be very big. So they're usually huge in terms of numbers. There are people who have no idea who they are. They've been placed in, or they were born through a family that long lost their power and status. So they may seem to be working class, uneducated, called ignorant, their manners, their table manners questioned, and the level of education can make people think, how could that person possibly be? Their accent, the place of living, their accent, you can sound as if you couldn't possibly belong to a royal capital or to a royal family, the senior family of that royal capital. And the royal families are always identifiable by the E for Exxon, power. Remember the 70s adverts? Some of you in the oil company, the tiger in the tank, that RE of the Ptolemy royal family is senior, not just in Kialo Tutsi, Egypt, Mizraim, but in the whole of Kialo, and therefore in the whole of the world. So the RE in Sudan is UE, uniform echo. In Kenya, it's Kilo Echo, KE. In Kialo Coast, South Africa, it's Zulu Echo, ZE. In Kialo Amba, which is a huge kingdom encompassing so many kingdoms in Kialo, Africa, it is Charlie Echo. In Germany, it's Delta Echo. Long before we get to Germany, there's a kingdom of Judah, who the first kingdom of the Middle East, originally and still is Gulf Echo. So that's what you're looking for. In some countries, such as Kialo Wo, Ethiopia, it's RUE, Romeo Uniform Echo at the beginning. And the royal family members ends with A for Alpha. And it can continue. So, Kialo Ku, Tanzania, their said royal family are RUUE, the fifth original kingdom of Kialo called Africa. So their royal family are Romeo Uniform Echo, ending the 9th letter A for Alpha. And so it continues around the world. England is July Echo, JE. Before we get to England, there's France, of course. I think I missed them out before. Bravo Echo. Yes, BE, Bravo Echo. That's the Sed royal family of France. And Sed, in Kialo Tutsi, Egypt, there's always the prince of the Sed, who is the senior prince of the royal family. And hence, with the repeat patterns of the creators giving the world, given creation, the use of the word Sed, whether spelled SAID or SED, it means, rarely has it applied to anybody else, but its official meaning, its original meaning is the eldest son of the Sed King and the Sed King's squared-o wife, whether born through the wife at home, who may more than likely these days be a lady of another performer wife, sometimes not even a performer wife these days, but The Creator does it. Sometimes a baby is born, Credos, Kumbuza, and the Creator stops the baby. As the baby's born, everyone's rejoicing, and the Creator decides the baby's going somewhere else. So it possibly without any human noticing, whoop, the swap happens. And the baby that you have at home is usually a family member or a relative's baby, and your baby could be in another continent somewhere. For the same reason, I mean, the Creator doesn't make mistakes. It's for the safety of the parents and the baby and the brothers and sisters. It's for safety. The Creator, in the Creator's wisdom, has decided the baby needs to grow up somewhere else, and prayerfully will get acknowledged for who they are later on, which is why I keep going on about royal knowledge. The Sed Kings, the Shadow Kings, the Segudo Kings of the whole nations at the top of the nation pyramid, and the original kingdom pyramid, is vital knowledge, because although some may think it doesn't matter, all around this world there are people fighting because they or their king or their duke, depending on what the army and the arguments about who it's about, are not being recognized, or in the loss of clear teaching. Who they're fighting for is our king, our duke, or the heir may not be. They may well be royal, they may well be ducal, but of which country? With the Creator swapping the babies at birth, sometimes a few weeks or so after birth. If you've ever looked at your baby and thought, the baby looked different a minute ago, you may not find out until the child's national insurance number is produced by formula. That's one reason there is a formula to producing national insurance numbers. They're always exact to the individual person. So before assuming that someone had an extra relationship when it may be seen that they shouldn't have done, that may not be why you're not your father at home's own child. If the beginning of your national insurance number is different, then you're not. It has to be exact. RE is Egypt's. If it ends in A for Alpha, the Egyptian royal family. If it's RUE, that's the Ethiopian royal family, if it ends with A for Alpha. If it ends with B, C, D, E, the person's royaume, but different sections of that royal capital by blood. If it ends F, G, H through to Z, then the person is Philain. Remember, I've been teaching all this time that there are truly only two classes of persons, the royaume and the Philain. And the Philain, although they don't inherit kingdoms or dukedoms, but neither do most of the royaume, just as in the Bible, there's a description in the Old Testament of David set commanders over thousands and commanders over hundreds and commanders over tens. That pattern is a reference to the royal pattern by birth that the Creator has set, unless human beings need to swap a few people around, illness, inability, disability, war. Can't keep the kingdom stable because committed a terrible crime, and the only way is to ameliorate by swapping who rules somewhere or something like that. But by blood birth, it's set to the person, and it replicates the pattern throughout society, throughout an original kingdom. So the Philain have those who inherit amongst themselves. So one isn't Philain because one is working class, recuerdos, or considered uneducated. I don't like the term. As long as you're learning, wherever your learning has happened or is happening, can't truly be called uneducated. It's got too rigid and not very nice in this past 2 centuries or so. And it's a lot's been lost these past 200 years as people started using BA to hide personal secrets, and that pulls evil pulls people into ideas and armies that you've no idea about, and then one day you say something because someone else thought they'd ruin you by pulling you into something awful that they may have already been pulled into themselves, didn't want to feel alone or something, or they thought they'd curry favor with whichever wrong-headed person is leading the wrong-headed army. And that isn't always clear who's right or wrong when there's a war or civil war, because the whole subject of who is the Sed, who is the Shadow, who's the Segudo, and who's truly upholding Royaume the best, the prophecy and performer, it's fought a lot these days. And one of the consequences, as I was saying, of not being interested in learning how to tell, because a family tree, usually these days people are quiet about when they know there's been a swap, either a God-given done swap, a creator done swap, or an angel done swap, or human beings, could you please look after our baby? And as with Alexander the Great, then you have to find the records where that swap was referred to, because Alexander the Great is the son of the previous pharaoh. He's not truly European. He's not Macedonian. That's a style. When it talks about a duke, a king or a duke styled the Duke of Clarence or the Duke of Edinburgh. Prince Philip wasn't truly Scottish. It was a use of a styling of a name, a title conferred, but obviously somewhere there is a said Duke of Edinburgh by blood descent. Oh dear. And all this all around the world, there is so many arguments, so much fighting of people said to support someone when maybe they do, maybe they don't, maybe they know nothing about it, but they're said to support or not support the right person or the wrong person. And the next minute they're shot, they're stabbed, they're denied entry somewhere, they're denied justice, or they are that person and they don't know and they're denied justice, or they get accused. They get accused of something they haven't done because of who they are, whether they remember who they are, whether they were ever told in very daily life who they are by someone who was telling them the truth, or not. But people need to know the R, the U, the K, the Z, the C for Charlie, the G for golf, the I for Italy, the D for Delta, for David, the B for Bravo, that's the kingdoms of Francia, which is headed by the Kingdom of France. J for July, that's the English royal family. F for Foxtrot, the Scottish royal family. S for Sierra, that's the Cymru Welsh royal family, the Sed royal family. And E for Echo, which is the Kialo T, that is today known as the Republic of Eire, is their Sed royal family, EE. And everyone else is, apart from those where it's just them, P. Sorry, P for P Echo. Papa Echo is a Spanish royal family who come between Greece and Portugal in rank. Please divinare all of this, because people are, even when they're not dying, they can be fought in the playground, denied work, denied promotion, denied proper rights and treatment at work. They get bullied at work, bullied at school, bullied at higher education, bullied on transport, denied justice on transport. People can become picky if they about all sorts of things because they're annoyed with that person because of who they are. And the person may not even be Royom, it's just who they are, who you are within the Segudo prophecy that contains the end times prophecy, contains the books of Daniel and Revelation that talk about the end times of the one creator. You see so many factors. You're wondering why you're being ill-treated, why you were so roughly told that you couldn't marry into such and such a family because of some ancient dispute or a recent dispute because of someone's afraid they didn't know how to explain that you're the wife's child. She no longer knows how to explain to anybody, to her husband, to her parents or his parents or their other children, but panic sets in. Can't have that person in our family. No, especially when you seem to be of the same background, the same caste, and still there's because they don't know. And I understand the fear because it can sound like craziness to anyone who is not willing to acknowledge the truth of Royom truth and children, parents born according to own or through Vreen, or an adoption was done and 30 years ago or even 16 years ago, and one or both parents doesn't know how to explain or doesn't know how to explain why, because to talk about born according to own, you'll sound crazy to a lot of people, usually because they don't want to acknowledge or they don't want other members of the family to know about Royom because they think that's not going to do them any good. Sometimes depending on the interests of the child, usually, who may well be 40 or they're worried about how they'll react to being told whose child they are really, because the other factor is that one's own parent, father or mother, may seem to be lower class or lower caste, and so they don't know how to explain. But if your national insurance number ends A for Alpha, however low, upper or lower class you may be in upbringing, in schooling, then you are you. You are still the son or daughter of the king or the queen or the duke or the duchess, the earl, the countess, depending on the teachers used. Yes, you still are. It's just you don't seem to be. And so some of the caste arguments can be settled. Have a look at the end of the national insurance number of both before you declare either have broken sacred rules or just societal rules. Have a look at the end of their own national insurance numbers. If it's the same, then it's time to relax. If they're not performed, then they may still end up having children. Of course, they'll only be the child of either one, the husband or wife, or neither if the child swapped by the creator or the angels or the netta, the gods. So knowing how to understand national insurance numbers, who the alpha, the beta, the theta, there's a lot of silliness being taught. The Wellington family, the WB being described as, oh, you must be beta, when the WB is at the beginning of the national insurance number. The person might still be the duke's son or daughter if it ends with A for alpha. So whether or not one is alpha or beta or theta or delta or Philain and your theta or geta or not the surname Geta, but that's how it's called in Royom. Then it's the end that tells you the possibility of, is this person alpha or another member of another place among the Royom or a Philain, and where they are amongst Philain persons. You look at the end, the ninth letter of the end, the ninth letter of the national insurance number. One may well be WC, which is the Duke of Buckingham's dukedom, and if your ninth end letter of the national insurance number ends A for alpha, you're the Duke's family, then you need to be finding out who, and that's why divinare and knowing how to read birth certificates. Some people can perceive who we all are just by looking at us or by thinking about us. Our images and our parents, our birth parents, adoptive parents, parents who are calling themselves our parents, who seem to be our parents, grandparents, they can come into a person's vision, which is why some of us, I got to Kealoko, South Africa in the mid-1980s, and I remember a lady in Soweto, she looked at me as I was walking along with my aunt, our Stocko, Mrs. Stocko Madingwane. I was in Soweto, and the other lady known to my aunt, she said she's Homesha, and then someone said she English. She's English. She's an English. And at the time, having not been required who I am by blood, I knew my national insurance number, but I'd forgotten about national insurance numbers. So I didn't know why she was saying it. And I'm sure all over Africa, people said, have you been to your home only to get there to be called foreign? You're English, you're French, you're Greek, you're Italian. And you may be offended. Why are they saying that? I'm my parents' child, but your parents may never have shown you their national insurance number. Maybe they moved to Italy because one or both or a parent or grandparent of theirs is Italian by blood, even if they're black and seem to be Nigerian or Ghanaian or or Indian, yes, or Chinese. It can be a source of amusement once one knows for certain and you've understood and had time to process all the emotions and etc. As to who one really is. Kealoko is an original kingdom. ZE, ninth letter A for alpha, that tells you they're a member of the royal family of the whole kingdom. The Zulu are the humans. They're the capital city people of the original kingdom. That is all of South Africa. So if you're ZA, ZB to ZZ, or ZZ if you're American speaking, but you are the humans, you are the capital city people. And if yours ninth letter of your national insurance number ends A for alpha, then you are royal family if ZE at the beginning, or you're one of the royal ducal families of the original capital city persons. The XE, X-ray echo, they are the Segudo family. If it ends A for alpha, you are certainly closer if yours is XE. You're the elves of Kealoko. If it's XA, XE to XZ, you are North Dukedom persons, originally wherever lots of Xhosa people are living, in the Cape, which obviously is in the south, but you are native to Kealoko. And if your national insurance number begins QUJE, Quebec Uniform July Echo, then you are the first of the South Dukedoms of original Akala Kealoko. So you are native. And if you are QUJA at the beginning, QUJB, QUJC to QUJZ, you, at the beginning, you are native South African. You are native Kealoko too. Whoever you look like, you may understand yourself to be Tswana, South African Tswana, but you're not XA at the beginning, but that's not XA, but you're not QUJA at the beginning, you're XA. So there's certainly a heavenly tale as what happened that you were born into a Tswana family, or were you not quite born there, where you swapped, did the parents swap you because it was going to be just easier, safer for you. But you are this by Gadam Gaigazi. You are native South Africans. And all talk of only one group of those of those people are native. It's just talk. It's very sad talk, but if your NI number begins with one of those groupings of letters, you are by blood native South Africans. Even if you were born in Alaska or China or France or England or New York or Russia these days, or Poland or Hungary, you are native South African. And even if you look like you are native of one of those countries, still, you are by blood native South African, native Kialo Co, that is. I could go on, and this video could last for 3 hours or something, but I'm mindful of my own tiredness and probably yours, if you've got this far. But please divinare all these matters, because wars are being fought over who is apparently whom and who really is whom. Maybe the Islamist fights in Kialo, in Africa, can be resolved just by knowing who is really not just native to that kingdom or to that word, to that area, but who could possibly be royal family, or yes, knowing the national insurance numbers. Incidentally, Kialo Mo, Mozambique, their Sed royal family are ZUE, ninth letter A for Alpha. If that's you, you are Mozambique's royal family. Then it's a matter of the divinare, the shola, to find out whose are you within the family, because obviously it's a large family, lots of brothers of the king, his dad, grandparents, had lots of brothers and lots of cousins. So who are you within the family? XUE, X-ray uniform echo, you are northeast of Kialo Mo. You are nobody else. QUA is the next word, the next Enea, Dukedom of the north of Kialo Mo. And so it continues. ZUCE, Zulu uniform Charlie Echo, ending A for Alpha. You're the Sed royal family of Kialo Na, Namibia, an original kingdom, the 17th original kingdom of Kialo. So it's worth knowing to know, if it doesn't end A, then remember you're still the original royal capital. It's just that where you're slot by descent within the royal capital, or North Dukedom or South Dukedom of that. There are only 95 original kingdoms of Kialo. Kialo's kingdoms, I mentioned Kialo because the first kingdom of the world, the senior, is 18 kingdoms. It's just 18. And my next video will probably be, I'll try and to Tratisa, to Chana, who delineare in Latin, who is who within Kialo Amba, which is the 18th kingdom, and that is Bukavu, the original capital city of Kialo Amba is Bukavu rather than Kinshasa. Lots of Bukavu people, natives, live in Kinshasa, but their original homeland, the CE, is actually, the CE, the CA to CZ, is actually a city called Bukavu. The elves of Kialo Amba are actually the Libyans, and General Haftar is the Sed Duke, the Sed Emir of Libya. He's King Idris's grandson. He is, in truth, divinare before please divinare before fighting him any longer. Then find out who you are to him, because some of the people who've been fighting him are brothers and sisters of his and didn't quite know for certain who they are to him. Some are his children, being persuaded to fight him. or just to resist his rule, lack of support because they've been told to and things, and the this North Africa, east of Egypt, that is Libya to Morocco and Mauritania, and then Chad over to this, also to Mauritania, and the Central African Republic, all the way across West Africa, are actually all North Dukedoms of Kialo Amba. And all the tribes, original tribes, and tribe usually means original capital city, borough, or a North or a South Dukedom, or groupings of. There's nothing to be embarrassed about being known by tribe or tribal name. It's just knowing who you are, because the whole world has them, even if they're not referring to them, even if people don't know them anymore. But there are. Amavota Dini. Northumberland, November Echo, my NI number begins with us. I've been trying to tell the world for a long time, and not acknowledging Europe's apparent ethnic minorities for who they are by our national insurance numbers. It's not helping. You want people to not feel dissociated from the kingdoms they're living in. You want the healthy integration. Stop denying who we are, because it leads to people feeling like, yeah, no one cares about me. The only way I'm going to get anywhere to get my rights is to force my way on, helpfully, maybe by crime or something. Well, I shouldn't have the money. And why are they a king's daughter, son? Are they a duke's son, daughter, and you're busy denying, and it's come out in some anger? And I'm not saying it's okay to, just, beat people up and take what's theirs and things. I am Ma'at. I don't like lawlessness, but I understand how dissociated emotionally, psychologically people can become for forever being described as foreign, even when they know they're not. I know I'm not, but other black people, Middle Eastern, Asian people, East Asia, South Asian people, they're not always clear. It's the national insurance number at the beginning that tells you who you are by blood. Mum may be of the country that you're supposed to be of. She may not be. She may be English too. Maybe that's why they came here, to be near their parents. Maybe that's why they insisted on getting to France, because one or more of their parents is there, and things like that. So, or was there in the 40s and 50s. These things need acknowledging. They need understanding well, and then they need acknowledging publicly. Talk. Talk honorably, no funny stuff. Come on. Pray, divinari. What may have served safety 50, 60 years ago was only ever partial anyway, not teaching Royom, but to stop teaching it in the 70s, and how much crime could have been avoided had people not felt all out of sorts emotionally. It can lead to, just as people who may not take up a knife or steal from someone's account, but if you've taken to using BA, evil powers and ideas, to protect yourself from crime or from any other hurt, then you're actually promoting, you're actually pushing, evil begets evil. So you become part of that horrible chain of making somebody else who cares less steal from, who may turn out to be their mother in the shopping centre. Had they understood, had they known about the possibility even. Maybe a grandmother they didn't realise they had, because not been taught enough about family ties and how to tell. It matters. So please, if you value your life, the lives of those you care about, if you care about stability, ending wars that need never have started, not seeing your son, daughter join an army that you know they shouldn't be in because they're the target group. For the wrong-headed army is the wrong-headed army, but what if they joined fighting Israel because they've no idea that they're Hebrew because no one's told them? GUE is Canaan, Israel capital borough, but GE is Jerusalem. That person, you are Hebrew if your national insurance number begins Golf Echo or Hotel Echo, HE, or HA to HZ, or QUPE, QUPA to QUPZ, you're Hebrew, not Canaan or Ammon. And it's all around the world. People are fighting people in Parliament, not having that person as my MP, not knowing that some of the horrible words they've said are against a brother or a sister or a parent or a child that they didn't know they had, because no one's told many people in Ray, apparently I'm crazy, to talk about children being born according to own. And I do have children born in Ray, daily life, by the way, for those who are still waffling on about my apparently being barren. I didn't get to bring any of them up. Far too many plots against the reigning Cleopatra and her family members who fared variously in life. I'm not back at home altogether because of people using BA to hide their personal secrets, but that's making the country less secure because I'm also not just English and the lady of the reigning Cleopatra the ninth and of the ages, I'm the lady of the lake of England. So I'm also the oracle. Please take this message to heart. Take it to heart and pray about it, and pray to know when and to whom to start acknowledging, even when your family member or a friend of theirs asks if you know anything about national insurance numbers and ethnicity and capital city persons, or North Dukedom persons or South Dukedom persons, and which continent, which country, etc. Amen. The Creator bless you all. The Creator bless all the efforts you've made to date. So obviously this message is, this is royal teaching of the ages of creation, but not taught widely enough these days. So please, wholly rethink, prayer, pasha, shlola, divinary, whether or not it's time to start teaching again, especially Europe, the most atheist. Yeah, unhelpful, because the truth of these matters is the truth, and amen. Haze of blessings to the one Creator. Thank you for stopping.